And welcome back to episode 17 of Sin and Finn, the Dugout Decision Show.
And this is our first transaction episode. It is the biggest fish of the offseason so far. It's Dylan Cease, the largest free agent contract in Blue Jays history at that, just above George Springer's $150 million deal. It's Dylan Cease signing for $210 million over 7 years.
This is interesting. I honestly didn't think we'd be getting a midweek pod, let alone a transaction in November. We're not used to this, honestly, in Blue
Yeah.
Jays land, right? We never really see the Jays go out there early in the offseason. They're setting the tone for the pitching market by going out there and getting Dylan Cease. He's the first big fish in the pitching market to go off the board, and this is huge. Say what you will about Dylan Cease. Some of the numbers may not look great. He's got really high upside. You mentioned that you might not want Pete Walker back. Maybe we'll need some of that Pete magic now to fix him a little bit, but I think this is a big deal because this is the team showing that extra money that they made, they're reinvesting it into the team. And no, this does not mean that we are out on Bo Bichette and Kyle Tucker and all the other big free agents.
Yeah, exactly. And in our free agency preview, offseason preview episode, we were giving our top options in the offseason for starting pitching. And I mentioned that I love velocity. I love guys who
Oh
strike
yeah.
batters out, and that is the definition of Dylan Cease. This is a pitcher who throws very hard. He averaged 97.1 miles per hour on his fastball last year. And if you look at his ERA, it may not look great. Okay. It's a 4.55 ERA. But then when you look at fielding independent pitching, which is a stat that takes away fielding completely from pitching. And that's huge because the defense behind Dylan Cease last year was awful. It was one of the worst behind a starting pitcher in all of baseball. So his FIP is 3.61, which is a whole lot better than 4.55. And here's a really interesting stat that I found here. It's he had the highest strikeouts per 9 innings of any
Mm.
starter last year.
Oof.
Yes, above
Oof.
Garrett Crochet. Yes,
Oof.
above Tarek Skubal. Yes, above Paul Skeens. He strikes a
Wow.
lot of guys out. I'm very excited to see it in Rogers Center.
It's very complexing, right? Because what you just mentioned right there brings a lot of optimism, right? With that strikeout potential. I think the number is that he has the most overall strikeouts in the league since 2020. This guy posts, you'll see over 200 strikeouts a year, and he didn't really work that much last year through just over 160 innings, yet still had over 200 strikeouts. The playoff numbers, as we mentioned off camera, maybe aren't the greatest. We'll leave those for another day. But you know what? I like this deal with Cease. You mentioned with the guys with velocity too. You mentioned the profile of a guy like Tatsuya Imai, right? Coming from Japan, who's a guy throwing in the upper 90s. And I like that idea with the high velo. Because really with the Jays, we haven't seen that. You'll see guys like Jose Barrios sit like 92, 93. Chris Bassett was the same. You'll see the occasional Kevin Gausman start, right? Well, he'll get up to 97, 98, and he'll look amazing. And then the next start, he'll go into Yankee Stadium in a cold April day and he'll be throwing like 89. So it's very inconsistent. We really haven't had a guy with high velo in a long time. So bringing him in for 7 years, relatively young too, is Cease. I believe he's, what is he, 29, I think, going on 30, something to
Yeah,
that effect.
yeah.
Yeah. So again, you had Chris Bassett sort of phasing out. Max Scherzer. I mean, we had the Unk train going with this team. We had Max Scherzer throwing in game 7. So it's good to get some youth in here and get a flamethrower in there.
Yeah, 100%. And a big reason why we were talking about starting pitching in our offseason preview episode is because two of our best pitchers in Shane Bieber and Kevin Gausman's contracts are up after this year. And it was huge and critical to find not only a starting pitcher like Nick Martinez, Merrill Kelly, Justin Verlander, you need an impact starting pitcher. And that is exactly what Dylan Cease is. If you're worried
Yeah.
about the number, if you're worried about us giving $210 million to a guy who posted a 4.55 ERA last year, don't be worried. Okay. This will not affect our spending. And even better, Ross the boss found a way to defer some of the contract, which is huge. And just before we started this episode, we found out that it'll bring the AAV down from $30 million per year to about 26, which is
Yeah.
huge. And allows some spending for the Toronto Blue Jays. And this doesn't rule out anything. You talked about Kyle
Yeah.
Tucker, Bo Bichette, independent free agents. Why not both? Okay. These are the
Yeah.
kings of the AL East. It is super exciting to see us go out and not only be in rumors for a guy, but get a guy. We just got an
Oh.
ace that will be under contract for 7 years. And Yankees fans are looking at Hal Steinbrenner saying that they may not make a profit year by year. This is very special, and it's something that is very exciting. I mean, the first time we made offseason move this early was Robbie Ray, I believe, in 2020,
Mm, okay.
and this one is super early as well before American Thanksgiving, and it's, as I said before, the largest free agent contract in franchise history. And Ross and Mark Shapiro aren't messing around, man. It's super fun to watch as a
Yeah.
fan and to be a part of, I'm sure, as a Blue Jay.
You know what? You really just piqued my interest. I'm actually really happy that you mentioned Robbie Ray because thinking of the profile, these are two guys that are high on strikeout numbers, right? Maybe Dylan Cease throws a little bit harder than Robbie Ray. Now, think of Robbie Ray in his prime, not in 2025. But I seem to remember Robbie Ray getting up to the mid to upper 90s at times. He was a guy that struggled with command, could have been earlier in his career, if I remember correctly, prone to the home run ball, which of course Dylan Cease is. All the Blue Jays pitchers have are prone to the home run ball. It's just we can't get away from that. I think it was 22 or 23 home runs Dylan Cease gave up last year. But anyhow, similar profiles. And think back to Robbie Ray, who I remember had a pretty bad 2020 season. And what did he do in 2021? And the reason there's optimism for Dylan Cease is he finished second in Cy Young voting in 2022. And who was third? Alek Manoah. Uh, but Dylan Cease finished second. So again, the potential is there. And we saw that happen with Robbie Ray. He came over. Maybe Pete Walker does have some magic there. I don't know. Maybe he fixed something with Robbie Ray. Because again, it's pretty similar profiles there. And we saw Cease do it a couple years ago.
Yeah, and you mentioned this earlier, velocity. Like
Yeah.
not a lot of guys on our in our rotation have the kind of
No.
velocity that Dylan Cease does. And the impact that has is you can afford to miss your spot every now and again. But then when you talk about Max Scherzer throwing a slider right down the heart of the plate, or even Shane Bieber giving up that home run to Will Smith in the World Series,
Yeah.
when guys with uh, with velocity that isn't what Dylan Cease has, they can't afford to miss over the heart of the plate, and Dylan Cease can. This guy goes out every year. I mean, for the past 5 seasons, he's had 30 plus starts, which is awesome to see a guy post year after year. And in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, when is his velocity going to go down? He's going to hit the Jose Barrios curve,
No.
but Jose Barrios hit that at 1,600 innings, and Dylan's at 1,000. So that's at least
Ooh. Okay.
4 more years of his true prime, his true velocity, and I'm sure that he won't hit such a sharp decline as Jose Barrios. But looking at the rotation as a whole, this is a top 10 rotation in the league, and
Oh
10,
yeah.
10 might be a little too strict. It might be up there, top five. But like looking at it from a whole, it's Dylan Cease one, Kevin Gosman, Trey Savage, Shane Bieber, and Jose Barrios. And we don't know what will happen with Jose Barrios. You have voiced your displeasure with the way he acted when he was
Yeah.
moved to the bullpen. And what are your thoughts? Do you think we're going to go out and get another starting pitcher or stick with our guy, Jose Barrios?
You know what? When you mentioned that EMI profile, I was really liking that idea, but I find it hard to believe that we're going to go out and
Yeah.
get a top pitcher like that now that we got Cease. When you get a guy for 7 years at that value, it's hard to believe that they're going to end up with a Ranger Suarez, with a Framber Valdez, one of these top echelon pitchers. Are they in the market for someone potentially not Chris Bassett necessarily, but someone to that effect who's maybe of a lower profile? Maybe you sign him to a shorter term deal. They may be in that market potentially, but I think you can roll it back with Barrios for a year. Sure, he wasn't there in the dugout for the World Series and celebrating with the guys, but you know what? He had one bad year. He's a much better team guy than you think of Manoah, right? And the struggles he had with the team and communication. I don't get that impression from Barrios. I think it was just a couple of months. He had a little bit of a skid there. Injuries got him. I think he'll come back, and I think he'll want to improve his market. We've talked off camera about this, that who would really want Jose Barrios right now? If it was in a trade, sure, he'd get shipped off. But first of all, who would really want him in a trade? And should he go into 2026, and then I believe he has an option after next year or after 2027, if he's pitching poorly, I'm not sure why he'd want to opt out of that, right? So I think he'll stick with the Jays. And you know what? This is great too, because when we did our offseason preview, I was looking at the 2026 rotation, and I have potentially Eric Lauer as the fifth man, or about Bowden Francis coming back as the fifth man. We didn't know who the fifth guy was going to be. We don't have to worry about that. If we thought back a couple years ago to 2021, 2022, thinking Jose Barrios is our five man, probably means we have a pretty good rotation on our hands. Sky's the limit for Trey. You really got to hope you're going to get something good out of Gosman. It's his last year, right? So you really hope he goes out in a high note. But in terms of the future, I like having Trey and Cease at the top of the rotation. I like that going forward.
Yeah, yeah, me as well. And for this year, I think we can roll with Jose, see how he does. If he does poorly, there's always the trade deadline as well.
Yep.
Um, but this is a guy, Jose Brios, who was our opening day starter in
Oh my
2025.
God.
I know
He
that
was.
because I was there and watched the atrocity that was
Oh
that game
God.
against the Orioles. And right now he's our number five starter. Like this is a very
No.
good situation, and we have depth, as you said. Eric Lauer, and hopefully we don't have to talk about Bowden Francis too much more. But he did have a really good 2024. So there's a lot of depth here, and the signing of Dylan Cease is huge because you mentioned Ranger Suarez. I wasn't very high on Ranger Suarez. Like when your fastball average is 91 miles per hour, and
Yeah.
like we're lacking lefties, and as I said before, like I don't care about my OCD. I'm gonna go all out on righty pitchers, and Ross the boss thought the same. He said, "I want an all righty rotation. I love it." But it's huge to have a guy who can consistently throw this hard like every 5 days. And this guy doesn't miss starts. There's not many pitchers that throw very hard and consistently produce. Like usually Michael King was another guy. Michael King was coming off a very bad 2025 season and pitched very well in 2024. But you want a dependable starter, and that's something the Blue Jays front office values a lot. It's guys who are good in the locker room and good who like produced every 5 days and aren't hurt all the time. And Dylan Cease is that. And also Kevin Gosman, like he looked great in the playoffs, but his velocity was great every start. You won't see that every regular season game,
No,
but for
not at
Dylan
all.
Cease, he will easily throw a like 96, 97, 98 every start, and you don't have to worry about it. So I think there's a lot of value to that. And don't worry about everything on the media right now. Like I was so excited about this deal. Shout out Connor Steves, shout out Aiden Sinclair. They broke the news to me while I was in class. I was so excited about it, and then I just kept scrolling on Twitter, and then it's just the Blue Jays overpaid for Dylan Cease. What a bad contract! Like, oh, they had overpaid to finally get their guy and not like wait on a Japanese pitcher and be in a bidding war, right? They had overpay. They had to pay the Canada tax or the Blue Jays tax to bring him to Toronto, and that's not true.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
Yeah.
a good deal along with deferrals and brings a lot of value to this pitching staff.
Hey, are we starting at double S? Sinclair sources. It's now
Mm,
live. I
wow,
had it, man. I was on it
wow.
within like the first 30 seconds of it breaking. But this is great. But another thing that's piquing my interest now, looking at the rotation, is you mentioned is Jose Barrios going to be the fifth guy? I think definitely he will be for 2026. But looking to the future, we know that this most likely rules out a Chris Bassett re-signing. I think that's pretty clear that they're moving on from him. He'll be, I believe, 37 next year. So they want to move away from those older pitchers. Hard to believe that Max Scherzer would come back. Really don't see a need for that. When Kevin Gosman's going to be gone, I think Eric Lauer also has only one more year. You're essentially going to be looking at, and let's just say in the reality that Barrios goes into 2026, maybe has a good season and wants to opt out of his deal and look elsewhere. you'll have Trey Savage and Dylan Cease, and that's it. That'll essentially be your rotation. So when you mentioned would the Jays go out and look at another starter, I think I'm more inclined to say yes to that. And again, maybe it's not that top echelon guy. The more you tell me about Ranger Suarez, the less likely I'm wanting him now, I think, with that decline velocity. I get it. He's a lefty, but I don't like that velocity. What we're going to be down to like 85 miles an hour in a few years on his fastball. So maybe let's stay away from that. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. Is it a Michael King? Maybe something to that effect. I don't know, but I'm curious now where the Jays go from here. You're always going to need improvements everywhere. You can always take an improvement in the lineup, in the bullpen, in the starting rotation. They've obviously addressed that need now in the starting rotation. Do they focus aside from Bo Bichette, because we know that Bo Bichette is one of the top priorities, or Kyle Tucker, one of those two. But aside from that, do they focus on the bullpen? And we'd mentioned a couple of bullpen names. Do they focus on that? Or let's say they get Bo Bichette back. What's the next move after that? Is it going to end at Dylan Cease and Bo Bichette, or where do they go from there? I'm wondering, do they get a bullpen piece? Do they try and get another supplemental piece in the lineup? Curious to see where that money goes.
Yeah, and there were a lot of Blue Jays and Rizal Iglesias rumors, which I'm glad didn't come to
Yeah.
fruition. But I would prefer to handle the bullpen near the end of the offseason. Bullpen arms are we talked about this with Taylor McKee, Dr. Taylor McKee, and he just hates talking about bullpen pitchers in the offseason. I couldn't agree more. Like they are so unpredictable, and I don't want to open the books on a closer or anything like that. I think you have to go all out and go for Kyle Tucker. You
Okay.
you need to you need to put your best deal out there, Ross. Have a straight pursuit for Kyle Tucker, and he is a five-tool player. Like I said this last episode
Yeah.
as well, but Kyle Tucker is an outstanding player, and he's not, say, a superstar. He's a really good secondary player, um, plays very well next to a superstar. And man, would he look good in those Blue Jays uniforms. And would it be nice to beat out the Dodgers, beat out the Yankees? Trent Grisham opted into a deal with the Yankees, but I doubt that
True.
handicaps them that much. And yeah, so I think you have to go for Kyle Tucker. You've asserted dominance in these. I mean, the Red Sox got Sonny Gray yesterday, and Sonny Gray is a really good pitcher, but Dylan Cease just feels like he's on
Yeah.
a different level. So here you got the Yankees, you got the Red Sox, the Rays, Orioles, looking at the Blue Jays saying they just went to the World Series. They just got their ace for the next 7 years. Okay, what do we do? And it's awesome to be in this position
Yeah.
because usually we're in the other position where okay, the
Yeah.
Yankees just got Juan Soto. What do we do? Like, and now it's I'm not saying
Yeah.
Dylan Cease is Juan Soto. I'm not. They're two different
Was just
players,
gonna say, yeah.
different impacts, but it's that kind of deal that okay, this wasn't a fluke season. We're not going to roll over. We got our guy. We got to go out and do more.
Yeah, and it's incredible to think after the 2024 season, we were this close to a turning point in we're going to get to the deadline and we're going to trade Vlad and we're going to trade Bo and everyone's going to be gone and everything's going to be blown up. We were that close. And I think it was especially the breaking point was after we missed out on Soto, you go into spring training and Vlad's not signed. And that seemed like the breaking point where it was all going to blow up. And it was pretty clear. Either you get that deal done with Vlad and you're in a winning form from there, or you don't get the deal done and you let him go. So that probably was the turning point. They had to get it done because think in years past when you have a team, let's say like the Dodgers that now has a Shohei Ohtani, they went out after getting Ohtani to get who did they get? Blake Snell. They got a Tyler Glasnow. They got Roki Sasaki. They get everyone because now they see, oh, you got this guy Ohtani there for 10 years. That looks pretty good. Let's win around him. Now, finally, it took the Jays forever. They have Vlad for 14 years. Other players and other free or other agents can look at this, and this is also Scott Boras we're dealing with Dylan Cease. That's huge too to deal with Scott Boras in this case. That now other agents, other players can look at this and say, okay, the Jays have their superstar lined up for 14 years. We know that if we come to this team they're going to be in a winning mode and a competitive mode for an extended period of time. We didn't have that before. I really wish the Jays didn't offer Vlad like 100 million after that incredible 2021 season. We could have been done with this years ago. But you know what? I'm glad we're here. I don't want to get too greedy and say, yeah, let's get Tucker, let's get Bichette, let's get Suarez, let's get everybody. But maybe there is a sense of that. Again, we made this money. They're really showing the urge and the willingness to want to spend. I see a world where you can get out where you can get Tucker and Bichette, put Bichette at second base, the George Springer money, that's going to be coming off the books, right? 2026, that was a big contract. Take him out. Anthony Santander's your DH. Kyle Tucker's in the outfield. It works out pretty nice.
So nice, man. I was studying a few days ago, had that thought as well. Bichette and Tucker back, had to stop studying, just wrote out a lineup on my page, and I was like, oh my goodness, that would be insane. Obviously, it's probably more of a fantasy than
Yeah,
a realistic prediction. There are some, I mean, the Mets just went out and traded Brandon Nimmo to open two spots in the outfield.
true.
And boy, Steve Cohen has not been shy with spending. As
No.
as most of our listeners know, the Mets owner spends a lot of money, and we'll
Hmm.
we'll give Kyle Tucker blank check. So
Oh yeah.
obviously, there's things we don't know, but it's great to see us just put fear into our AL East counterparts eyes, and just to see them be like, okay, the Jays are asserting their dominance in the AL East, and we have to do
Yeah.
something. There's no choice. We can't sit back and sign these mid-level free agents. We have to like find an impactful player, and that is what the
Yeah.
Blue Jays did. And man, it's going to be exciting. Who starts opening day? That's a different discussion in
Mm.
spring training. But either way, such a great signing and such a great deal. And really, no better way to start the offseason with Shane Bieber opting into his contract, $12 million deal. And then Dylan Cease, the best free agent pitcher on the market, comes and signs
Yeah.
with the Blue Jays before anyone else really does anything. It's pretty
Yeah.
awesome, man.
It's great. I would say he was maybe a little bit off our radar again with all the guys that we mentioned in the starting pitcher loop. He was maybe in that second tier pushing towards the front tier of starting pitchers, but again, when you look at that $210 million, he certainly looks like one of the top dogs. For people worrying about the money, listen, it's not our money, right? It's not ours. It's Rogers' money. They made a ton. They can do whatever they want with it. All right. So I like it. They went out, they got Cease, fill out that rotation, and it's great to think that we're getting a signing in November. I can't remember a big signing for the Jays in November ever, honestly, in our history. Thinking back to prior off seasons, probably because it's the first time we're in the World Series in 32 years, that probably is part of it. But yeah, it's great to think that we got a guy who I'd like to think is going to be at the top of the rotation for the next 7 years. That's pretty cool to think he's going to at least be in your top three for the next 7 years.
Yeah, 100%. And one last point is our guy Ross the Boss moves in silence. Okay.
Yeah,
Zero word about Dylan Cease and the Blue Jays. JP Morosi, nothing. Okay. Ross the
nothing.
Boss moves in silence. He's done this in years past. Just even the trade deadline, like Louis Varland was on nobody's radar. Just goes out, snatches them. Other guys like this is insane stuff, and it's just completely off the radar. And it's great for us Blue Jays fans because it's just such a thrill. Like, whoa, had
Yeah,
no idea this was going to happen, but it's freaking awesome, dude.
yeah,
And that's the thrill of the off season. Have fun sitting back and not seeing anything for the next 3 weeks. But
yeah.
this is a whole lot of fun, and that's the MLB off season in a nutshell, man.
It's great. I love seeing that passive bomb when we finally got it. The John
Yeah,
Heymans, everyone out there in the
yeah.
Twitter world. Love seeing that bomb. Can't wait to see more. We have a very special guest joining us on our next episode, unless we have another transaction going down in the next few days. So stay tuned for that, and we can't wait for what's to come with that.
Go Jays. Thank you guys.
Go Jays. Thank you for tuning in.